Hi everyone, it's Miss Drisko, and I'm going to be reading chapters 26, 27, 28 of Wonder. So chapter 26, Costumes. For me, Halloween is the best holiday in the world. It even beats Christmas. I get to dress up in a costume. I get to wear a mask. I get to go around like every other kid with a mask, and nobody thinks I look weird. Nobody takes a second look. Nobody notices me. Nobody knows me. I wish every day could be Halloween. We could all wear masks all the time. Then we would walk around and get to know each other before we got to see what we looked like under the masks. When I was little, I used to wear an astronaut helmet everywhere I went. To the playground, to the supermarket, to pick Via up from school. Even in the middle of the summer, though it was so hot my face would sweat. I think I wore it for a couple of years, but I had to stop wearing it when I had my eye surgery. I was about 7, I think, and then we couldn't find the helmet after that. Mom looked everywhere for it. She figured that it had probably ended up in Grand's attic, and she kept meaning to look for it, but by then I had gotten used to not wearing it anymore. I have pictures of me in all my Halloween costumes. My first Halloween I was a pumpkin. My second I was Tigger. My third I was Peter Pan. Dad dressed up as Captain Hook. My fourth I was Captain Hook, and my dad dressed up as Peter Pan. My fifth I was an astronaut. My sixth I was Obi-Wan Kenobi. My 7th, I was a clone trooper. My 8th, I was Darth Vader. My 9th, I was the Bleeding Scream, the one that has the fake blood oozing out over the skull mask. This year, I was going to be Boba Fett, not Boba Fett the kid in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, but Boba Fett, the man from Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Mom searched everywhere for the costume but couldn't find one in my size, so she bought me a Jango Fett costume, since Jango Fett was Boba Fett's dad, and wore the same armor, and then painted the armor green. She did some other stuff to it to make it look worn too. Anyways, it looks totally real. Mom's good at costumes. In homeroom, we all talked about what we were going to be for Halloween. Charlotte was going to be Hermione from Harry Potter. Jack was going to be a wolfman. I heard that Julian was going as Jango Fett, which was a weird coincidence. I don't think he liked hearing that I was going as Boba Fett. On the morning of Halloween, Via had this big crying meltdown about something. Via's always been so calm and cool, but this year she's had a couple of these kinds of fits. Dad was late for work and was like, "Via, let's go, let's go." Usually Dad is super patient about things, but not when it comes to his being late for work. And his yelling just stressed out Via even more, and she started crying louder, so Mom told Dad to take me to school and that she'd deal with Via. Then Mom kissed me goodbye quickly before I even put on my costume and disappeared into Via's room. "Augie, let's go now," Dad said. "I have a meeting I can't be late for." I haven't put on my costume yet, so put it on already. 5 minutes. I'll meet you outside." I rushed to my room and started to put on Boba Fett's costume, but all of a sudden, I didn't feel like wearing it. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it had all these belts that needed to be tightened and I needed someone's help putting it on. Or maybe it was because it still smelled a little like paint. All I knew was that it was a lot of work to put the costume on, and Dad was waiting and would get super impatient if I made him late. So, at the last minute, I threw on the Bleeding Scream costume from last year. It was such an easy costume. Just a long black robe and a big white mask. I yelled goodbye from the door on my way out, but Mom didn't even hear me. "I thought you were going as Jango Fett," said Dad when I got outside. "Boba Fett." Yeah, whatever," said Dad. "This is a better costume anyways." "Yeah, it's cool," I answered. Chapter 27, The Bleeding Scream. Walking through the halls that morning on my way to the lockers was, I have to say, absolutely awesome. Where I usually walked with my head down trying to avoid being seen, today I was walking with my head up, looking around. I wanted to be seen. One kid wearing the exact same costume as mine, long white skull face, fake oozing blood, high-fived me as we passed each other on the stairs. I had no idea who he was, and he had no idea who I was, and I wondered for a second if he would have ever done that if he had known it was me under the mask. I was starting to think this was going to go down as one of the most awesome days in the history of my life. But then I got to homeroom. The first costume I saw as I walked in the door was Darth Sidious. It had one of those rubber masks, so it was really realistic, with a big black hood over the head and a long black robe. I knew right away that was Julian, of course. He He must have changed his costume at the last minute because he thought I was coming as Jango Fett. He was talking to two mummies who must have been Miles and Henry, and they were all kind of looking at the door like they were waiting for someone to come through it. I knew it wasn't the bleeding scream they were looking for. It was Boba Fett. I was going to go and sit at my usual desk, but for some reason, I don't know why, I found myself walking over to a desk near them and could hear them talking. One of the mummies was saying, "It really does look like him." "Like this part especially," answered Julian's voice. He put his fingers on the cheeks and the eyes of his Darth Sidious mask. "Actually," said the mummy, "what he really looks like is one of those shrunken heads. Have you ever seen one of those? He looks exactly like that. I think he looks like an orc." "Oh, yeah." "If I looked like that," said the Julian voice, kind of laughing, "I swear to God, I'd put a hood over my face every day." I've thought about this a lot," said the second mummy, sounding serious, "and I really think, if I looked like him, seriously, I think I'd kill myself." "You would not," answered Darth Sidious. "Yeah, for real," insisted the same mummy. "I can't imagine looking in the mirror every day and seeing myself like that. It would be too awful. And getting stared at all the time? Then why do you hang out with him so much?" asked Darth Sidious. "I don't know," answered the mummy. "Tushman asked me to hang out with him at the beginning of the school year, and he must have told all the teachers to put us next to each other in all of our classes or something." The mummy shrugged. I knew that shrug, of course. I knew that voice. I knew I wanted to run out of the class right then and there. But I stood there, where I was, and listened to Jack Will finish what he was saying. "I mean, the thing is, he always follows me around. What am I supposed to do?" "Just ditch him," said Julian. I don't know what Jack answered, because I walked out of the class without anyone knowing I had been there. My face felt like it was on fire. I walked down the stairs. I was sweating under my costume, and I had started crying. I couldn't keep it from happening. The tears were so thick in my eyes I could barely see, but I couldn't wipe them through my mask as I walked away. I looked for a little tiny spot to disappear into. I wanted a hole I could fall inside of, a little black hole that would eat me up. Why do you think Augie is so sad? All those really awful things, Jack Will was saying those about him. How if he looked like Augie, he would want to die. That whole time they were talking about Augie. I don't blame him for wanting to fall into a hole and for being so sad. I'm sad for him. Chapter 28, Names. Rat Boy, Freak, Monster, Freddy Krueger, E.T., Grossed Out, Lizard Face, Mutant. I knew the names they called me. I've been in enough playgrounds to know kids can be mean. I know. I ended up in the second floor bathroom. No one was there because first period had started and everyone was in class. I locked the door to my stall and took off my mask and just cried for I don't know how long. Then I went to the nurse's office and told her I had a stomach ache, which was true because I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. Nurse Molly called Mom and had me lie down on the sofa next to her desk. 15 minutes later, Mom was at the door. "Sweetness," she said, coming over to hug me. "Hi," I mumbled. I didn't want her to ask anything until afterward. "You have a stomach ache?" she asked, automatically putting her hand on my forehead to check my temperature. "He said he feels like throwing up," said Nurse Molly, looking at me with very nice eyes. "I have a headache," I whispered. "I wonder if it's something you ate," Mom said, looking worried. "There is a stomach bug going around," said Nurse Molly. "Oh, geez," said Mom, her eyebrows going up as she shook her head. She helped me to my feet. "Should I call a taxi, or are you okay walking home?" "I can walk." "What a brave kid," said Nurse Molly, patting me on the back as she walked us toward the door. "If he starts throwing up or runs a temperature, you should call the doctor." "Absolutely," said Mom, shaking Nurse Molly's hand. "Thank you so much for taking care of him." "My pleasure," answered Nurse Molly, putting her hand under my chin and tilting my face up. "You take care of yourself, okay?" I nodded and mumbled thank you. Mom and I walked the whole way home. I didn't tell her anything about what had happened, and later when she asked me if I felt well enough to go to trick-or-treating after school, I said no. This worried her, since she knew how much I usually loved trick-or-treating. I heard her say to Dad on the phone, "He doesn't even have the energy to go trick-or-treating. No fever at all. Well, I will if he doesn't feel any better by tomorrow." I know, poor thing. Imagine his missing Halloween. I got out of going to school the next day too, which was Friday, so I had the whole weekend to think about everything. I was pretty sure I would never go back to school again. Would you want to go back to school if you were Augie and your best friend had said all those things about you? We'll have to see what happens next. Bye, friends.